So it's a new year, my friends, and you can't escape all the metaphors for beginning again this time of year. The looking forward, getting in charge, having more autonomy and control over our future than we had over our past. It's everywhere.
Some of those metaphors are a clean slate, a crossroads, a new road ahead. But this week, Barb and I read an article by Reverend Cameron Trimble that had an entirely opposite way of looking at it. She writes about the indigenous Aymara, it might be Aymara, people of the Andes Mountains, who believes that we actually walk backward into the future with our eyes fixed on what has already been lived. The past, which we can see, is an essential element of the future which we cannot yet see. She writes, so as this year begins, we do not stand at a blank slate. We stand inside a long story. Imagine that, walking backward into the future, our eyes fixed not on what we hope to control, but on what has already been lived.
And that looking backward to go forward, that remembering that we are part of a long story, is central to the Wesley Covenant service, which for almost 300 years has helped Methodists walk backwards into the future. Or I'm always uncomfortable with walking backwards, so maybe walking forwards but looking back, I'm not sure. The Wesley Covenant service recognizes that as individuals and as a community, we need to be guided by more than our own limited experience and knowledge. It invites us to reestablish our connection with God, who has always been there for us, always loving, always steadfast, always present in the joys and the regrets and the pains and the sorrows and the pleasures of our lives together. We look back to who God has been for us so that we can walk forward as God's people.
When John Wesley wrote his covenant service in 1750, he was actually riffing on a much earlier prayer by a Puritan named Richard Allain. And he especially riffed on the line, I am no longer my own, but thine. Now, for the Puritans, who were Calvinist, that line meant complete submission with no agency and no free will to a God who controlled everything. Wesley kept the words, but he transformed their meaning. He brought his own life-changing experience of God's love and grace to the line, I am no longer my own, but thine. So they become a celebration now of human free will and divine grace. An invitation for us to be able to freely choose to be God's partners and to make God's will first in our lives.
And it's that sense of grace that we invite you to use as we go forward in this service, because it has language that is sometimes alien to our 21st century ears. You might find some of the phrases that are here comforting. You might find them disturbing. Some of them may bring up frustrations for you. Some of them may be liberating for you. Whatever you find, we invite you to approach them the way Wesley did, looking at them through the lens of grace, which declares that no matter what, you are God's beloved child. We are God's beloved children. I don't for a moment believe that Puritan determinism that preaches that God controls everything. I'm also not comfortable with a brand of postmodern Christianity that says we control everything, or mostly everything, and that God is an accessory we can choose to maximize our self-actualization. Neither of those feels true to what I know about people or about God.
So I'm thankful for how the Wesley Covenant service walks a theological tightrope between those two poles, offering a grace-filled and humility-filled third way, where human freedom is celebrated, and we recognize that our work of love and compassion in the world are only possible when we are, as Xavier read a little bit ago, when we are connected to Christ, like branches are to a life-giving vine. The covenant services language, as strange as it might sound to modern ears, all point to our ability to choose to participate in God's plan to heal the world the way Jesus did, through sacrificial actions of liberating love. It insists that we offer our ultimate allegiance and our ultimate identity to God alone, not to a president or to an algorithm, not to a billionaire or a bishop or a brand, but to God alone.
I grew up in the United Methodist Church, as I know some of you did as well. I've been saying the Wesley Covenant prayer the first Sunday of January for as long as I can remember. And I remember one year in particular. It was exactly 20 years ago this January in 2006. And at the time, I was recovering from a traumatic brain injury that I had suffered just a couple of months before then. And when I came to the words, "Let me be full, let me be empty," it stopped me in my tracks. And I realized that every year before when I had said that, I had said it with great confidence of my fullness, my usefulness, and my ability to be used by God in the world. And that year, what I felt was my emptiness. It wasn't at all clear yet what the ultimate outcome of my rehabilitation would be. I wasn't sure if I'd ever be full again. And what the Wesley Covenant service told me is that no matter whether I felt full or felt empty, God's grace held all of it. God's grace held all of me in love, in possibility. God was mine and I was God's no matter what. And that was an amazing gift to me that year.
It's the lens of grace that also helps me read another challenging line when we read, "Put me to doing, put me to suffering." That always takes me aback. But it's important to realize that for United Methodists, we don't believe God causes suffering, illness or war or hunger. God doesn't send chronic pain or abuse. But we know that many of us have been through suffering, through terrible, tragic, and awful events, and that the world is full of suffering. So these words remind us that God's grace, again, holds us through all of it. As Paul writes in Romans 8, all things work together toward good for those who love God. Put me to doing, put me to suffering is also a call to recognize the suffering around us. to feel the pain of injustice, and to struggle in love and grace to bring about change. When Jeremiah promises that one day God's Torah, God's will and way, would be written on our hearts, it's so that we might feel a bit of what God feels in the midst of injustice and suffering, and move us to take actions of liberating love.
So as we go through the many, many, many words of this covenant service today, we invite you to not rush past the difficult places. Let the strange language slow you down. Let it search you a bit. Let it remind you that the future that we're walking backwards into does not belong to us alone. It belongs to God and to the partnership we have with God as we move into that future.
When we declare in the service, "I am no longer my own, but yours," we are not erasing ourselves.
That's right.
We are remembering who we are and whose we are. We are placing our lives back into the long story that began before us and will continue long after us.
And so we move into the future, my friends, as individuals, as a community, as the body of Christ. And we walk into this future together with each other and with God. And so we invite you to join in this covenant service today.